This is Casey Cockrell with Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Geospatial Engineering 5383, Advanced Geospatial Analysis and Design. For my semester project, I wanted to answer the question of where should I build a brewery in Longview, Texas, using spatial analysis to try to identify a feasible location for a production brewery and tap room. This is a multifaceted question. I wanted to capitalize on demographic groups of people who would prefer craft beer. Gregg County, in addition, has wet and dry precincts that would restrict where you could or couldn't consume alcohol on the premise. The city of Longview has zoning requirements that would force it into a heavy commercial zoning, and then in addition, there's statute limitations on how close a brewery could be to a education facility or house of worship, and additional factors that would play into it as far as tax evaluations on the property or crime statistics in the area. Longview, Texas is the center point, principal city of the Longview Metropolitan Statistical Area that holds socioeconomic influence. About 20 miles. I chose to omit Tyler and Marshall from this analysis, but it covers about 5 different counties in the area. My identifiable goals were to locate mean center or a weighted mean center using census data to try to target the demographics of people who prefer craft beer, to locate the wet precincts in the parcels zoned heavy commercial, identify some of the issues that would prohibit site selection, and look at other factors that would encourage site selection. The start of all of my analysis was with complete data sets, which was actually, I spent most of my time gathering the shape files from the census in both the block and the block group geometries. I spent quite a bit of time on Fact Finder, limiting and filtering out tabular data to be returned and joined into these block and block group shape files. I got parcel data from the Gregg Central Appraisal District that included tax evaluations. The City of Longview's open data had a significant amount of data that you could download, including buildings, the wet and dry precinct areas, the zoning information, and then with Texas Natural Resources, I used TxDOT's Longview Center Point as the start of my analysis. So some of the methods I used was the geoprocessing tools in Esri ArcMap to merge and join. I did quite a bit of table editing in Excel with the Fact Finder table data that I got. Query Builder in my different data sets and feature classes I was working with to eliminate stuff outside of my scope of area. And I calculated several different fields and then used a lot of symbology in the production of my maps for my analysis. The demographic group that I chose to target as those who prefer craft beer were both male and females equally. Between the ages of 20 and 40 with higher expendable incomes. As you can see in this map, the star is the TxDOT center of Longview, and that was the basis point for all of my analysis. The lighter yellow area are parcels that have been clipped to a 20-mile selected radius, and the darker yellow area is about 7 miles. And I chose that because I did several different analyses at this level to see if there was any significant difference that Longview proper really made a big difference, and it really didn't. Like I said, I chose to omit Marshall and Tyler's influence on this. If you see Longview, it's the county seat of Gregg County, and off to the east is Harrison, to the north Upshur, portions of Smith, and to the south Rusk County. So there were about 5 counties that on the Tiger shapefile data I had to download, and I went ahead and did both the block level, which is the smallest partitions, and the block group level. And the reason I had to choose the block group level was because income is reported that way. So at the block level, I downloaded the 2010 100% data SFM1 sex by age and sex by age white alone, to try to eliminate and find out a tighter demographic group. And on this map, the red dot represents just the mean center of all the males and females between the ages of 20 and 40. And the dots higher up in the map, the blue, draw more to the north and to the west, would be the mean center of males and females white only, not Hispanic, and also the influence that income played a portion on it, which those results were really surprising because where those dots are in a industrial area with lower income housing and it just not a whole lot of commercial development. So at first, when I did this analysis and I saw that these mean centers were landing in the Gregton area, it was surprising. Gregg County has portions of wet and dry precincts, and what wet means is that you can basically produce alcohol, consume alcohol, but there are portions in Gregg County that are absolutely off limits and dry, and Harrison County also. So this prohibits where the location of a tap room could be, which is a major point of sale for a production brewery. You could go and build a production brewery pretty much anywhere you want to, and then use distributors to distribute to restaurants for your point of sale. But a tap room and a nano or micro brewery is a significant amount of income, and you want to encourage people to come to that location. So one of the first steps I needed to do was just identify an area where even a feasible brewery could be built. And as you can see, where the geographic mean center landed in the Gregton area is a dry, no on-premise consumption of alcohol there. So even though the mean center analysis kind of didn't make any sense and doesn't return any decent results, it actually did come in handy later on for additional analysis. So the city of Longview said that a production brewery with tap room that had less than 51% of its sales not being in food had to be zoned in a heavy commercial area. Also needed to be inside of a wet precinct. So the areas in dark red are the eligible areas that you could even consider building a production brewery with tap room inside the city limits of Longview. And where the star is on this map is the mean center of our target demographic group, which does solve a lot of questions, because if you look at the red parcels, the areas to the far south are along the Sabine River and heavy industrial chemical areas with low populations. So you'd want to choose a place that would be in the red up toward Highway 80 rather than south toward the river and toward the chemical factories and petro industry. So the mean center analysis did come back to benefit future analysis, just trying to select parcels that were eligible for a brewery to even be built in. So I decided to zone in even more in the northern red parcels that were eligible into an area that was more commercially accessible. Right down the middle of McCann Road, Judson Road, High Street, the Longview downtown area that is trying to be developed as a restaurant bar district. So this is the area where currently there are successful restaurants in operation, where it's common for people to drive to these locations. In addition, the Brewers Association said that most people who prefer craft beer are within 10 miles of the production brewery that they would spend their money at, which that's a pretty wide area for the city of Longview. So really, in hindsight, you could build it anywhere, and people would drive to it. And that was kind of the common response from the East Texas Brewers Guild as well, is if you make good beer, it doesn't matter. People are going to come to your brewery, whether it was, 20 miles out of town or in a high productivity area or a high commercial area. But, with a nano brewery or microbrewery, every point of sale counts. So you really want to increase those invoices, and that's why I kind of narrowed it down to a central location of downtown Longview to really start analyzing for a better site selection. Once the area was kind of decided to where to focus on a site selection in an area that was a wet precinct, zoned heavy commercial, there are additional limitations that would prohibit the location of a production brewery. One of them is a statute that says from front door to front door, a brewery cannot be within 300 feet of a house of worship or an education facility as measured along the route of the road, not crossing property lines. Well, that's a pretty specific measurement, which the City of Longview's police department are the ones who fill out all those applications. But I had a data set from the City of Longview, all the buildings that had attributed their use. And so I isolated and identified houses of worship and education facilities, and I just made a 300-foot buffer around them and said, let's just not even look there. And a word of warning is this data set is not 100% accurate. There are additional houses of worship in this area that later on you'll see could cause a problem in the site selection that I narrowed down even more. The other thing I was trying to focus on was, even though zoned heavy commercial or general business area it would be the place for a production brewery tap room to be at, I thought, well, wouldn't it be beneficial if you could be in that parcel zone that way, but general retail or light commercial or general commercial or office spaces, just so you could get the synergy of existing, businesses and restaurants and parking lots and people being in that area. So that was also my intentions on adding that symbology to the map. In addition, I took the Gregg Central Appraisal District and I created a price per square foot of these parcels based on their tax evaluation and their geometry of their area. And I was trying to locate maybe an area of the common real estate mantra of find the cheapest house in the most expensive neighborhood. And that way, if you were adding value to your property, it would be more beneficial to your brewery instead of spending a lot of money on the upstart to try to buy premier real estate. That's a terrible way to start a new business. So they say that to create a production brewery costs about 5 or 6 times more than trying to just create a restaurant. So I was trying to identify an area that maybe would be a good value also, and that just did not pop out. In this area, the properties are incredibly low in value, and there was nothing that was just apparent. Everything was really less than like $1 a square foot. So price of the real estate was not a significant contributing factor in trying to choose a location. There were some additional factors that I wanted to take a look at. One of them primarily was crime activity in the area. And I made an open records request to the Longview Police Department, in which they denied. But they said, however, there's an interactive crime map available where you can filter out by crime. So I chose assault, burglary, disturbing the peace, homicide, vandalism, robbery, those kinds of things, so that when patrons do come to your brewery, they're not worried about their car getting broken into or walking down a shady street. Or if the person who's creating the brewery, they would know, hey, I need to get involved with this community, build better fences to prevent burglary and put in better lighting. But in reality, Longview is a pretty violent place, and there was no rhyme or reason to any of the pattern at all for crime, except don't go near Walmart parking lots or the Longview Mall. That was primarily where most of the crime happened. All the other ones were just really, really spread out. So crime really didn't play a factor. It's similar to real estate evaluation. Crime and they didn't really play a factor in site selection. So out of the area that I chose, I finally chose an area up here by intersection of McCann and Spur 63 and Highway 80, where there's currently several restaurants, bars, taco stands, areas like that. High volume of people. It's common to have a lot of traffic in these areas. It's a commercial area, and there are several buildings there that are abandoned bowling alleys and cigar shops and tattoo shops, restaurants, strip malls, other bars. I think it would be a really good place in this area to put a brewery. It kind of sits on a hill. It's the original hill, Grace Hill, that the city of Longview was named for. So it would be a really nice location. But just another heads up from the incomplete data set, from the city of Longview for buildings use, there are several houses of worship in this area also that were not, I know from experience, exist, but were not attributed correctly. So if you chose a site based on some of your data and you didn't go out there and put some boots on the ground, you would run into some problems whenever you're filling out all of your applications. So one of the neat things about this study is there currently is a brewery that opened up in 2015 in downtown Longview called Oil Horse Brewing Company, that fits all of these parameters. And talking with other brewers in the area that seek to open up production breweries and tap rooms, I've shared this report with them, and they're right in the wheelhouse of everywhere everybody's looking. So this was a really interesting study. I spent a lot of time basically manipulating data sets using field calculator and query builder and join and merge and isolating these data sets to figure out where would be a ideal spot, not only based on the demographics that prefer craft beer, being between the ages of 20 and 40 with a higher expendable income, but also which precinct would allow on-site beer consumption, which parcels would be zoned for heavy commercial so that the city of Longview would allow it, where could you build it away from a house of worship or a education facility, where would be a low crime area, any place that would help somebody make a better decision with so many variables. Thank you.